You know what? You know how everyone has a benchmark for bad things like, I don't know, people describe things as shit, as poo, human feces. I think I've got a much better phrase for describing terrible stuff than shit. A phrase that elicits much more visceral disgust from anyone that hears it than merely saying shit. And instead of that shit, how about from now on we just say, that's property developer? How much worse are property developers than human shit? It may sound like a big call if you're friends with any of these parasites, but if New South Wales, the scummiest, most corrupt state in the country, knows to ban political donations from them, I think it's safe to say that their reputation is more than a little f***ed. And if you don't believe me, here's a mystical tale from the far-off lands of Strathfield. There's this land in Strathfield. It was bought by human shit. Company related to Indonesian property developer Iwan Sunito for around $2 to $3 million, which, is pretty cheap. So naturally, local council, which is controlled by the Liberal Party, saw that a property developer bought land and sprung it to action. Who else are councils meant to govern for? Residents of the area? F*** no. Especially when this is the same Iwan Sunito that Gladys denied knowing to ICAC, so of course, here's a photo of them together. I don't have a joke here, but I don't need one. Look at his big ears. He's like the BFG. Except he's allegedly less friendly. SPD, scary property developer. I hate snows combers, but I do love me some frob zoning permits. Anyway, after the land was bought, eventually Strathfield Council passed a special resolution to rezone the land based on very specific heights and densities. Almost as if they were trying to maximise the value of the land that one of their friends bought, bypassing the local environment plan. So now, based on these rezonings, the land that was purchased for $2 to $3 million could be worth as much as $70 to $80 million. When the Labor councillors saw this, they attempted to revoke the special resolution, but in response, the rest of the councillors called an extraordinary general meeting immediately after to reinstate the motion. So it's safe to say, this council really likes being subservient to human shit. It gets worse. The land that this proposed development on is allegedly highly contaminated industrial land. People speculate it used to be a petrol station, and it's right on the Cooks River, Sydney's version of the fucking Ganges. Oh, and on top of that, this is just anecdotal, but I've heard stories of at least a couple of people developing brain cancer after moving into these new apartments developed on potentially contaminated land around the same area. But just like motor neuron disease in Griffith, disease seems to be collateral in the coalition seeking profits for their mates. If you're around and live in parts of Sydney that ain't Mossman, you'll notice these shithouse of cards apartment blocks spawning everywhere like mushrooms after rain, all approved by some level of government. But why the f*** does this have to be the case? Well, an easy answer is that it's politics. Another answer is that it's the Liberal Party. But the Liberal Party is made up of individuals. So let's have a look at some of the individuals on Strathfield Council. You've got the Liberal Mayor, a lovely guy called Antoine Douari. Pictured here, not looking like a guy that had pleaded guilty to developing property without development consent. So I know the next sentence I say is going to shock you, but in 2013, he pled guilty to exactly that. Oh, Antoine. How could you? Yet after that, this guy was still elected Mayor of Strathfield Council. But you know what they say about criminals that don't suffer real consequences for their actions? They don't re-offend. So I know this next sentence will be even more of a shocker, but can you believe that just this June, Antoine admitted to breaching the New South Wales Local Government Act 5 times by concealing his interest in property development? But guys, you don't understand. Antoine, this guy, is actually a victim. Property developers are oppressed, and just like Martin Luther King, Antoine fighting the civil rights battle of the century, evil people in Labor and the Greens are attempting to have property developers banned from serving on local council. Oh, but Antoine won't have a bar of it. He's fighting tooth and nail the God-given right for property developers like himself to corruptly control the planning processes that are meant to keep property development in check. According to Antoine, property developers are treated worse than brothel owners. I wish that was true, but unlike property developers, I don't see photos of Gladys chubbing it up with brothel owners all the time. Unless... Is John Barilaro a pimp? Nah, bruh's legitimate small businessman. You'd think after getting done in for being a property developer twice, Antoine would start steering clear of that shit. But here's a Fred Lee Geordie's exclusive. Mayor Antoine Douahi's business partner, Robert Gregory, has a company that has been knocking on the doors of people in Belfield attempting to buy options in their property. Now, in case you're wondering what options are, they're essentially a contract that says that you can buy something for a set price at a certain date. In this case, it's the mayor's business partner offering to buy property in Belfield in 2 years' time for $2.1 million. In an area just next to Iwan Sanito's development, no less. I really like Belfield, but Jesus Christ, I also really like Banh Mi. Paying $2.1 million for a house in Belfield is like paying $15 for Banh Mi. It's just a bit of a rip-off. Unless you know something about that Banh Mi being rezoned. Pretty shit analogy, but you know what I'm getting at, because the lawyer helping with the transaction is Antoine Douahi's defense lawyer in the case against Douahi concealing his property interests. If only there was some way to connect the dots. Too bad there isn't, and I'm not connecting anything. Moving on. The good thing for Antoine is that he isn't alone in his hashtag activism for property developers. I mean, there's only so many Instagram posts one mayor can make. The Liberal Party are helping him out, voting against every bill that attempts to have developers banned from serving on local council. Antoine is also good friends with a guy called Joe Tannous, who really, in my honest opinion, is lower than scum. Joe Tannous is this Liberal Party insider that just seems to be everywhere something dodgy's happening in the state ever. He's such an insider. Peter Dutton gave him COVID, to give you an idea. I mean, for f***'s sake, he ran John Sidoti's campaign. It's also been alleged to me that Joe regularly dines with Alex Smith, the state politics editor from the Sydney Morning Herald. So it's great as always to know the media are holding developers and lobbyists in check. But back to Strathfield, there's more fun characters such as the ex-Liberal Mayor Julian Vicari. Now, Julian is a property developer. He developed this big block of apartments in Ashfield, and the funny thing about Julian is when a Labor councillor rightly stated the plain fact that he's clearly a property developer, he threatened to sue her for defamation, arguing that property developer was a pejorative term, and he wasn't a property developer. Oh no, he was, get this, he just so happens to develop property. I was right in saying property developers lower than shit. Even property developers don't want to be called property developers. He's literally saying the label property developer is defamatory. And I know this seems absurd, but trust me, it's an extremely common trick property developers use to get away with dodgy shit. Usually it's to get away with making illegal donations to state politicians. The property developing Stack family, a family with members convicted for literally killing koalas, did exactly the same thing. When they were called out for making illegal donations solicited by Gladys Berejiklian, you know what their response was? I'm suing you if you call me a property developer! For the last time, I'm not a property developer! I just develop property! Anyway, the reason this is hilarious is because when Antoine Douahi, having a whinge about the plight of the property developer, he let it slip. You can't live without the property developers! They build everyone's home! Which first off, yes, I'm sure Sydney would be a lot worse off if we didn't have knocking down heritage houses, pulling up blocks of flats on toxic land, and then leaving those new flats mostly vacant so they don't have to lower rent and hurt the speculative value of the sandcastle they just built. What a value to society on the brink. But most importantly, what a funny admission, because remember, Julian Vicari from earlier, who threatened to sue over being called a property developer, his own Liberal Party colleague is admitting anyone who builds a dwelling is a property developer. So sorry, Julian, you're a property developer. Even your criminal property developer mate Antoine Douahi could see it. Don't be an Uncle Tom of your own property developer mates, Julian. Don't deny your identity. Don't deny who you really are. Join Antoine's fight in demanding justice. But this all beggars the question, if even property developers hate property developers, how the f*** does Strathfield get one as their mayor and councillor? Council elections are coming up later this year, and I swear to God, Strathfield, I'm going to be sad if you vote for another property developer to be your mayor, or even on your council, and oh wait, we haven't finished going through this lot of the council yet. Just when you were thinking this council couldn't get any crazier, there's another guy on it called Matthew Blackmore. Now, he's ostensibly an independent, but he tends to always help property developers out, so he's pretty much a Liberal. Kind of a Latham figure though, because before he was an independent, he was also a Labor member, but eventually he got too f***ed for Labor. Now, you might wonder how he could get too f***ed for the party of Obeid. Oh, proof I'm not a Labor shill right there, boys. No, but seriously, the 2 Labor councillors on Strathfield Council are excellent. Matthew's also a fraudster. And that's not an exaggeration. I can say without defaming him, he was literally convicted of misappropriating thousands of dollars from a real estate agency and was still voted into the council in 2017. Strathfield Council is colourful. You have 3 people, all who would qualify for the role of villain in Round the Twist, and it gets better. There are more characters on the council. There's another lib, Stephanie Kokolas. Pretty sure she doesn't even live in the council area. She's actually from Canada Bay. You have another lady called Nella Hall, who's ostensibly an independent, but really a member of One Nation, which if you're from Sydney, you'll know how absurd having someone from One Nation on Strathfield Council is. It's a bit like an Animal Justice Party mayor for Mount Isa, but it gets better than that. Because the elections have been postponed, the council has to vote for a new mayor, and the 2 Labor councillors have to choose between either 2 criminals, a property developer, and a member of One Nation.
Please explain.
And out of that mix, it seems like the One Nation member is the best option. So we might end up in the bizarre scenario where a One Nation member is a mayor of a council that controls fucking Greenacre. Love it or leave it, habibi. That fact is a testament to the power and sheer sense of impunity of property developers. Not only the fact that they can saturate a local council, but the fact that they feel like they don't even need to hide their grave infractions against public probity. They really are that shit. Strathfield, get a new council. At least have a mayor whose business partner doesn't try and buy options in your property. Like and subscribe. Get a Bruz keychain at friendlyjordies.com.
Please share and comment below. Comment.